What's up, everyone? Kevin Leslie, and welcome back to another solo edition of the At the Thousand podcast. And today we're talking about strength training, resistance-based training, because at the end of the day, rowers are athletes first, rowers second. We're athletes first, rowers second. And this is something that I talk about all the time because whether you are a high school, college, master's rower, oftentimes we look at the sport of rowing as a training based sport, right? The root of rowing is in training, meaning predominantly the fitter athletes will win the race, right? The fitter athletes will perform the best versus, say, basketball is a skill based sport. You got to learn how to shoot, you got to learn how to dribble, and all these different things. Now, there are elements of training to being a high level basketball player, don't get me wrong, just like there are elements of technique to being an effective rower. Not trying to raise a riot talking about those different things, but the roots of it are in, for rowing and endurance sports in general, it's training. In ball sports, skill sports, it's the skill, right? But there's elements of both on either side. And for rowing, oftentimes we look at, once we get on the water, we shift our focus to only being on the water and we disregard all the other things that are in many ways necessary to building the overall athlete. Now, I see this especially on the high school level and even on the master's level. College kind of takes care of itself because most college programs, at least the well-established one, have some kind of strength and conditioning program where they're going and seeing a strength coach 2 to 3 times a week. When I say strength training, resistance training, right? Strength training is just going to be my all-purpose terminology for it, but resistance-based training, right? They're going to the weight room, working with bands and weights and mobility exercises, core strength, all these different things, right? So a lot of college programs kind of have that taken care of. But it's the high school and the master's programs that I often see it most avoided, I guess is the best way to think. I don't think it's deliberate, but it doesn't really enter their training routine. So for today's episode, I'm going to try to keep it relatively on the quicker side, even though I tend to ramble about these things. But today's episode is going to be talking about strength training and kind of a 3+3, right? I put out an Instagram post a couple of days ago. People liked it, or actually it was yesterday. And some people liked it where, again, just talking about the why behind why is strength training important. Now, if you want a really in-depth understanding of the why behind strength training, there are at least 2 podcast episodes that we've done on the At the Thousand podcast with people who are way more, at least at expert level in those fields, right? Way more into the weeds within strength training and why it's important for rowers. Dr. Nick Goode shot one actually less than a month ago, or maybe a month ago. Dr. Joe DeLeo, maybe last June, both dove deeply into why strength training is important for rowing performance. I'm going to keep it a little bit more high level. So talking about 3 reasons why strength training is important for rowers. And then secondly, how to better incorporate it into your routine if you are that high school rower who is looking to take a little bit of your own path in alignment with what you're doing with your high school program, or if you're a master's rower and your passion for being a part of this sport is getting out in the water, right? It's finally here and you get to get back on the water, row in boats, weather's warm, it's beautiful in the mornings, all these different things. But you're also thinking about longevity, performance, all these different things. So how can you start to sprinkle this into your normal training routine? So with that, let's get started. 3 reasons why rowers need strength training. Number 1, increase power per stroke and efficiency with rowing technique or with rowing training. And Nick Goode, the episode a couple weeks ago, had such an amazing explanation for this. Again, I think if you're looking to incorporate strength training into your routine, great episode to start with, just diving into the why behind it. But all things being equal, what we talked about is all things being equal, right? Same fitness, height, weight, your experience, your technique, all things being equal, the athlete who is able to generate more power per stroke covers a further distance with each stroke, right? Whether it's on the water or on the earth, they're covering a greater distance on every stroke. So if you take the same amount of strokes, the athlete who is more powerful has a better, or is going to cover more ground, thus come out on top winning the race, right? At its simplest, that's the importance of strength training, right? All things being equal, the stronger, more powerful athlete is going to cover that distance faster, right? That's what we want to think about. And then rowing efficiency, right? Rowing training efficiency. One of the things we talked about in that episode is rowing economy, right? And again, he does a way better job of explaining it than I do, but increasing your ability to, or your maximum force is thus you're going to be able to better allocate that maximum force throughout the duration of a race, right? So your efficiency per stroke has now elevated due to elevating your ability to produce force. So in summary, strong athletes can elevate their rowing performance, right? That's number one. Number two, overall athleticism, right? Overall athleticism and athlete awareness for long-term development. What do I mean by that? So overall athleticism, you would be surprised, right? And many people listening can probably ask themselves this question, but where is your level of competency with performing a perfect bodyweight squat, with performing a push-up from the floor, with holding a plank position for a minute, right? Very simple, fundamental movements / exercises for athleticism, right? We asked the same question to that basketball player. Again, I don't want to be judgmental, but their sport in many ways kind of covers a lot of, there's a strength training element to a lot of those higher level basketball programs, right? They do their sport and then they carve out this time for strength training where they're working with strength coaches. Again, every program is probably a little bit different, but ask them that question. Ask them to produce a squat. Ask them to jump off, the boards and with a vertical jump, right? And then ask the rowers, right? Or ask yourself, right? High school rowers especially, because we're doing the same movement every day. And that is our training, right? It's rowing on the water or on the erg, right? We don't incorporate body weight movements, squats, push-ups, core and mobility, and then eventually, hopefully adding some weight so that we can increase, back to point number one, our ability to produce force, right? So overall athleticism is rooted in a lot of the fundamental strength training movements, right? Push, pull, squat, and hinge. What is your level of competency within those four movements? And then also, how does that affect us with our coordination, our rhythm, right? Our just overall mobility, being able to perform a butt to heel squat or as low as you can go, right? And then I think one of the things we don't think about are those hidden values that actually help our ability to perform on the water, right? Is coordination important, right? Obviously, right? Coordination, right, with the handle. Is rhythm important? Yes, obviously, right? The ability to stay in rhythm with the entire boat, right? Mobility, right? The ability to get to full compression, which we often don't train in rowing, but we can train in different strength training modalities, right? So that's what we want to think about on that front. Number three, most important one, right? Reducing the risk of injuries, right? That's by far of those three, the most important one. The ability to build the structure of the athlete, to build a supporting system that can withstand the workload that is required to be a high level rower. That's what we want to think about. So incorporating strength and resistance movements as simple as bodyweight exercises or bands, right? Doesn't require much equipment, but committing to that on a weekly basis or twice a week is going to help with the unseen values of rowing, which is staying healthy, right? We don't think about that until every rower who's been through a significant injury, whether you're a high school, college, or master's athlete, it usually sneaks up on you pretty quickly, or it's the opposite, right? It's that nagging thing that it started with a little crack in the foundation and then slowly start to expand to the point where now you're in the water for 3 months, right? Because you're dealing with an injury. So again, rowing or resistance training helps build that foundation, that structure with the body to be able to withstand the work that is required of a competitive rower or any rower, right? You're sitting in that boat for 2 hours every morning, every afternoon, whatever it is. You're hunched over, right? You're flexed over, you're tight, right? You're sitting there all day. And then you're also performing the same movement 1,000 times minimum, right? If you're going for close to an hour, if not more, right? That's going to force our body to get tight. That's going to force our body to really seize up at different times, right? So strength training, resistance training, core and mobility, which again, I'm lumping them all together. Those will help mitigate or minimize, hopefully, that risk that eventually that foundation is going to crack. Now, second layer to this, right? Those are the 3 reasons why. To increase power per stroke and efficiency with rowing training. Number 2, to develop overall athleticism and athlete awareness for long-term development. And number 3, to establish the durability to reduce the risk of injuries and stay on the water for longer, right? Those are the 3 whys that I want you to think about. And again, if you want a deeper dive, go to those previous episodes. We spend an hour plus talking about those topics, right? The why behind rowing performance training. Now, how do we better incorporate it into our training routine, right? I said 3 plus 3 in the beginning, right? Three for the why, 3 for the how, right? So now the how to incorporate this into our training. And for high school and master's rowers especially, right? You're limited with time, you're limited with, your ability to dedicate to training, right? Master's rowers, you're trying to balance morning rows with job and kids and all these different things. High school athletes, you're trying to balance however many hours of school with 6 days a week of practice. So how can you fit these in to your normal weekly routine? Again, college athletes are a little bit different because in many ways that the importance of these sessions is baked into your normal training program, right? The strength training component is kind of integrated into your full training where you're probably averaging 9 to 11 training sessions per week, of which 2 are probably strength training sessions. So how can high school and master's athletes take from what the college athletes are already doing and incorporate it into their own routine? So now let's talk about it. Number 1, establish a routine that fits your practice schedule and other priorities and is at a time that you enjoy training. This is something I've talked about a lot in the past, but number 1, the value of a routine. That's the biggest thing. What are the days, right? With all those other factors in your life, right? Practice, work, family commitments, homework, hanging out with friends, all these different things, right? Again, different from masters athletes who have just as many commitments as well. When do you feel are, again, if we're thinking about 2 days, which I'll get to in a second, if we're thinking about 2 strength training sessions per week, where are the days that those can fit into your weekly routine with 90% certainty? That's what I call it a lot with the athletes I work with. I call it 90% certainty for those days, right? Hey, Tuesday and Saturday afternoon, I know that I have a light schedule on Tuesdays and Saturday afternoons. I'm just relaxing at home and I could probably use some training, right? I'm 90% certain that those are the days that work to incorporate strength/resistance-based training. That 10% is the wiggle room, right? Hey, you know what? We actually are going on vacation this Saturday right after practice. So as soon as I get off of practice, I'm not going to have time to go strength training, right? That's that 10% wiggle room. Hey, I have too much homework or zonked from all these other commitments throughout the day on Tuesday. I don't have it in me today, right? Again, 10% wiggle room, right? But 90% of the time, these are the days that work for you. And I've said this before, but if you're not a morning person, don't put it in the morning, right? I'm a morning person. I love training in the morning. I don't love strength training in the morning. So I'll do most of my endurance training in the morning. And by endurance training, getting on the erg, right? That's what I prioritize in the morning. I don't get that same feeling and energy that I get from a great erg workout. I don't get that from strength training. So for me, strength training is usually in the afternoon. So I have to pick 2 days in my week where I know that, hey, 6 o'clock rolls around, I can get out to the gym and do my strength training. There's going to be some flexibility. There's going to be some times where you have to adjust. But again, 90% certainty, that is a time I enjoy lifting weights at. Not in the morning, not as much, right? So I adjust my schedule to what best suits me. Number 2, for ways to better incorporate it. Target full body workouts 2 times per week and cap them at 45 minutes per session. This is an important one because oftentimes when we feel like we have to incorporate or include strength training, we feel like we have to dedicate a significant portion of our time. It's an hour to a 90-minute full body session, or if we're splitting it up as lower body this day, upper body this day, so on and so forth. Keep it simple. 45 minutes capped, right? Once you hit 45 minutes, you're done, or you're switching to mobility and core, right? 45 minutes, and in many ways, you can probably get most of it done in 30 minutes. Pick high return exercises. Full body lift, right? Push, pull, squat, and hinge. Make sure that you're touching your push, your pull, your squat, and your hinge in every session. Superset them in different ways so that you can make sure to get all the work in and not sell yourself short. And then any time remaining at the end, you can do the fun stuff, right? Am I going to say bicep curls are going to be direct contributors to winning gold medals on race day? Probably not, right? And most of the strength coaches who know a lot more than I do will probably echo those same thoughts. But if you're in the weight room and you want to incorporate some of that stuff at the end of your session, well, you're already there. Get it done. But the base of your training session should be push, pull, squat, hinge, full body, and core, right? That's a big one too, right? The structure that connects it all. Stick to those basics. And then also, as you get that rhythm, add in some things that you really enjoy doing as well, right? Hit the bench press, hit the curls, hit the leg exercises that you love, whatever it may be. Everyone's a little different, but make sure you get that full body approach or full body training in first and cap it at 45 minutes. And the reason I say cap it is because the moment it starts to get too long is the moment where in the back of your mind, you're like, man, I've been at the gym for 90 minutes. Now I'm rushing to get home to eat dinner. Now I'm rushing to get my homework done. I'm getting to bed later than I thought. Okay, maybe this whole strength training thing isn't worth it, right? Maybe I'm setting aside too much time for it. If you put that hard cap in, and once 45 minutes hits, this is something that works well for me. Once that 45-minute time limit hits, stop where you are, and you're on to the next day, right? If you didn't get everything, think about the structure. Think about what you can take away and what you can add in. But don't let it trickle into a 75-minute, 90-minute session, because then it starts to weigh on you, where it's like, man, I have all these other things I got to do. And now I'm trying to set aside some time for strength training. Think about it. High return exercises twice a week, capped at 45 minutes plus, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of core and mobility, right? All told, warm-ups included, an hour. That's it, right? So that's the way you want to think about it, right? Again, a little bit of flexibility within the time, but give yourself a limit for how long that session requires of your time. Last one, focus on proper technique, full range of motion, and prioritize consistency over intensity. Technique, range of motion, consistency over intensity. And at the end of the day, we're not bodybuilders. We're not football players. We're not linemen who are trying to get as strong as possible to provide resistance to, the D linemen or vice versa as they come through, right? We're endurance athletes. And our job as endurance athletes is, yes, to get stronger, but the bulk of our work is in getting as aerobically fit, or as, again, aerobically, anaerobically fit to be able to produce for 2,000 meters, if we're talking about specifically rowers. We don't need to be lifting like the bodybuilder or the football player. So focus on perfection with your technique, which anyone who's weight training, regardless of what sport, that should be your primary focus. Prioritize full range of motion, right? Full depth with your squats, right? Maybe regressing your push-ups, starting on a box so that you can slowly work your way down, right? There's different ways to make technique and range of motion more of a priority, right? Regressing exercises, limiting the number of reps and sets that you do. Again, things that, hey, if you're looking for the what, like what to do, again, there's some materials in those, or there's some great conversation that we have in those previous episodes. But at the end of the day, proper technique, full range of motion, and consistency over intensity. This is the big one. Don't focus on adding as much weight as possible, doing 5 sets of 20 reps of reverse lunges, and walking out of the gym like a zombie with no legs because you can't even walk. Consistency over intensity. Build yourself up to the point where you have this level of confidence being in the weight room. You have this energy and this motivation that allows you to want to come back to the gym. 3 sets of 10, right? Where you're working your way up. Maybe you have, 4 reps left in the bank at set number 1, 2 after set number 2, and then, maybe you're pushing a little bit further, set number 3, right? But give yourself room to build. Give yourself room to bake in the tolerance for exercises that you don't always do. Because then you can start to establish that routine. If you feel like you have to conquer everything, it's no different than the person who should be doing couch to 5K, and instead they're doing couch to marathon, and their first training day, they run 13 miles, and then they never run again after that because they're so sore and they hate running. Same thing can happen when you talk about a rower switching to weight training or pivoting to weight training for a session, right? They get in there, they put all this weight on the bar, back squats, deadlifts, RDLs, all these different things, and they walk out and they never want to come back after they wake up the next day and all that fatigue has really started to kick in. So start by focusing on consistency. One day at the gym, check the box. Next day at the gym, check the box. Next week, okay, maybe I'm going to increase it a little bit. Check the box, check the box. Consistency. Then build in the intensity as you get more comfortable. With that, let me run through them real quick, right, before I wrap things up. Ways to better include strength training. Establish a routine that fits your practice schedule and other priorities, and at a time that you want to train. Number 2, target full body workouts 2 times per week, capped at 45 minutes, plus 10 to 15 minutes for core mobility. Number 3, focus on technique, full range of motion, and prioritize consistency over intensity. All right, those are the 3 things that will help you integrate it into your routine, feel energized each session for that next session so that you want to come back, and will help, again, really build that foundation that will pay true dividends long term as an athlete, as you build the athlete, as you build the structure, the foundation that will carry over to on the water success. So with that, let me know if you have any questions. Leave them in the comments, whatever it is. If you like this information, subscribe, follow, leave a rating. That really helps out. I love these solo editions because they just give me an opportunity to take the stuff that I take away from these great podcast episodes, from the guests I bring on, and deliver them to you in my own light, right? That's why I love these solo episodes. So again, keep training, keep working hard. Can't believe we're already in April. That's amazing. But with that, I'll talk to you soon. Keep working hard. Peace.